Sarah Chen stood in the center of the testing chamber, her boots planted firmly on the metal floor. Around her, 12 different species of cadets watched from behind protective barriers. The chamber was huge, with white walls that reached up to a ceiling filled with scanning devices and cameras. Everything here was designed to measure, test, and judge. She looked at the faces staring at her. Some had 4 eyes. Others had scales instead of skin. A few had tentacles where humans had arms. But they all had the same expression. They were curious about the human from Earth. Most humans these days came from the garden worlds. Nice planets with low gravity, perfect weather, and no dangerous animals. Those humans were soft, gentle people who lived easy lives. Sarah was different. She was Earthborn. Commander Veltar, a tall, blue-skinned officer with silver markings on his forehead, stepped forward. His voice echoed in the chamber when he spoke. "Today we test your reflexes," he said. "Scanner bolts will be fired at you. Each bolt moves faster than the last. When you can no longer catch or dodge them, the test ends. This measures your reaction time and physical speed." Sarah nodded. She had heard about this test. Most cadets lasted through maybe 8 or 10 bolts before their bodies could not keep up. The best cadets from the warrior species might handle 15 bolts. "Cadet Vextar will operate the scanner weapon," Commander Veltar announced. A young Zenthari stepped forward. He was tall and muscular, with gray skin and bright yellow eyes. His people were known as warriors and scholars. They were proud of their physical abilities and their quick minds. Vextar looked at Sarah with obvious doubt in his eyes. He did not think much of humans. "Ready, human?" Vextar asked. His voice carried a tone that said he expected this to be over quickly. Sarah just nodded. The first bolt came slowly. It was a bright blue streak of energy about the size of a baseball. Sarah caught it easily with her left hand. The energy felt warm against her palm before it dissolved. The second bolt was faster. Sarah caught it with her right hand. The third, fourth, and fifth bolts came quicker each time. Sarah caught them all without moving her feet. She did not even look like she was trying hard. By the 10th bolt, the other cadets were leaning forward against the barriers. This was already longer than most tests lasted. Vextar's yellow eyes were narrowing. He was starting to look annoyed. The 15th bolt came fast enough that it made a sharp whistling sound as it cut through the air. Sarah plucked it out of the air like she was catching a soap bubble. Vextar's jaw muscles tightened. His pride was being hurt. The other cadets were whispering to each other in a dozen different languages. The 20th bolt screamed through the air. Most scanning equipment could barely track something moving that fast. Sarah caught it and tossed it gently to the floor. Now Vextar was angry. His warrior training told him that what he was seeing should not be possible. No unenhanced being could move that fast. No one should be able to track something moving at those speeds with just their eyes. "Impossible," he muttered. "What was that?" Sarah asked. Her voice was calm and steady. Vextar increased the power settings on the scanner weapon. The next bolt would be moving at speeds that could punch through steel armor. He aimed carefully and fired. The bolt was a blur of blue light. It moved so fast that the air around it crackled with energy. Sarah's hand moved. To the watching cadets, her arm seemed to barely twitch. But somehow, when the bolt should have hit her in the chest, it was sitting in her open palm instead. The energy weapons targeting computers had said it was impossible to intercept. The chamber was completely silent. Sarah looked at the bolt in her hand, then at Vextar. She could see the shock and confusion in his yellow eyes. She could see the same expression on every face in the room. "Earthborn," she said simply. Then she crushed the energy bolt between her fingers like it was made of paper. "Try again." The words hit the chamber like a thunderclap. Several cadets stepped backward. A few made sounds of surprise in their own languages. Commander Veltar's silver markings seemed to glow brighter on his forehead. Vextar stared at the scanner weapon in his hands like it had betrayed him. He checked the settings twice. The weapon was working perfectly. It had fired a bolt that should have been uncatchable by any living being. "That is not possible," he said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "Many things are possible," Sarah replied. "You just need to know how." She was still standing in the same spot where she had started. She had not even broken a sweat. Her breathing was normal. She looked like someone who had just caught a ball thrown by a child. Commander Veltar walked over to Vextar and took the scanner weapon. He examined its settings and readouts. Everything was normal. The weapon had performed exactly as designed. "Continue the test," he ordered, but Vextar was shaking his head. "Sir, the weapon is already at maximum safe settings. If I increase the power more, the bolts could seriously hurt someone." "I can take it," Sarah said. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at her. She was serious. She was telling them to fire something at her that could punch holes in military armor, and she believed she could catch it. Commander Veltar studied her face for a long moment. Then he handed the weapon back to Vextar. "Increase power to combat settings," he ordered. Several cadets made noises of concern. Combat settings were meant for battle, not testing. But Vextar followed orders. His hands moved over the weapon's controls. The next bolt was not blue. It was white-hot and angry. It left a trail of superheated air behind it as it flew. Sarah caught it. This time, her feet did move. She took one small step to the side and reached out with both hands. The bolt hit her palms and stopped dead. Steam rose from her hands as the energy dissolved. The silence in the chamber was so complete that Sarah could hear the ventilation systems humming in the walls. She looked around at all the staring faces. Then, she looked at Vextar. "Is that the best you have?" she asked. Sarah walked through the academy halls after the test ended. Other cadets moved out of her way without being asked. They whispered as she passed. Some stared openly. Others pretended not to see her at all. She found an empty observation deck and sat down. Through the large windows, she could see 3 moons hanging in the purple sky of Academy Station. Everything here was clean and safe, and perfectly controlled. It made her think of home. Terra Prime was not like this place. Terra Prime was what Earth had become after 300 years of careful planning. Most people thought Earth was just the old human homeworld, a place where humans used to live before they spread to the stars. That was not the whole truth. Sarah remembered her childhood on Terra Prime. She remembered the morning runs through forests where every shadow might hide something that wanted to eat her. She remembered the gravity that pulled at her body like invisible chains, making every step a small victory. Her father had been a Terra Prime instructor. He taught survival to the few children who were born there instead of the garden worlds. "Why do we live here, Papa?" she had asked when she was 8 years old. "Why don't we live on New Paradise like Cousin Maria?" Winhara. Winhawa. Winhawa. Why do we live on New Paradise like Cousin Maria? Her father had been cleaning his rifle, checking it for damage after another hunting trip. On Terra Prime, you hunted the animals before they hunted you. "Because someone has to stay strong," he had said. "Someone has to remember what humans really are." Sarah had not understood then. She was just a child who wanted to know why her life was so much harder than the lives of other human children. Now she understood better. 300 years ago, humans had joined the Galactic Confederation. It was presented as a great honor. Humanity would take its place among the advanced species of the galaxy. They would live on beautiful worlds with perfect climates and no dangers. But there had been conditions. Earth was declared a hazardous world and placed under strict population limits. Only military families and essential personnel could live there. Most humans were relocated to garden worlds where they would be safe and comfortable. The official reason was that Earth was too dangerous for normal human life. The gravity was too high. The weather was too unpredictable. The animals were too aggressive. The plants were too toxic. It was better for humans to live somewhere safer. Sarah had learned the real reason when she applied to the academy. The Confederation was afraid of what Earth produced. They were afraid of humans like her. On the garden worlds, human children grew up in 0.7 gravity. They ate food that was carefully designed to be healthy and safe. They played games that could not hurt them. They learned to solve problems with words instead of violence. These humans were smart and creative and kind. They made excellent scientists, artists, and diplomats. The galaxy loved them, but they were soft. Sarah had grown up in 1.3 gravity. Every day was a workout, that would break most galactic citizens. She had eaten food that she caught or killed herself. She had played games where losing meant pain and winning meant survival. Terra Prime was designed to be harder than Earth had ever been. The gravity was increased. The weather was made more extreme. The animals were bred to be more dangerous. Everything was pushed to the limit of what humans could survive. Because the Confederation needed soft humans for most jobs, but they also needed hard humans for some jobs. Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Her reflection looked back at her from the glass. She was not tall, but her muscles were dense and strong. Her hands were scarred from 100 small injuries. Her eyes were the eyes of someone who had learned early that the world could be dangerous. Behind her, she heard footsteps. She turned to see Cadet Zephyr approaching. Zephyr was from New Eden, one of the nicest garden worlds. She had pale skin, bright blue eyes, and the soft build of someone who had never lifted anything heavier than a book. "Sarah," Zephyr said. Her voice was nervous. "Can we talk?" Sarah nodded. "What you did today," Zephyr continued. "How is it possible? I mean, I'm human too, but I could never do something like that." "Different worlds make different people," Sarah said. "But we're the same species. We have the same genes." Sarah smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Do we? My great-grandmother was born on Earth before the relocation. My grandmother was born in the first generation on Terra Prime. My mother was second generation. I am third generation." "I don't understand." "Terra Prime has been breeding humans for 300 years, Sarah explained. "Not intentionally. Not with science. Just by making life hard enough that only certain kinds of people can survive and have children." Zephyr's eyes went wide. That's horrible, is it?" Sarah asked. "You live on a world where no child ever goes hungry, where no one dies from disease or accident or violence, where everyone is safe and happy all the time." "Yes, that sounds wonderful." "It is wonderful," Sarah agreed. "But what happens when you need someone who can catch a scanner bolt moving at combat speed? What happens when you need someone who can fight something that your wonderful safe worlds cannot handle?" Zephyr was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "Is that why you're here? To fight something?" Sarah looked out at the moons again. In the distance, she could see the lights of ships coming and going from the academy. Most of those ships carried cadets from the garden worlds, young people who wanted to serve the galaxy in safe, comfortable jobs, but some of those ships carried cadets from Terra Prime and the few other hard worlds where humans still lived difficult lives. They were here for different reasons. "I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "They don't tell us everything. But I think something is coming. Something that needs hard humans to fight it." "How many of you are there?" Zephyr asked. "Humans from the hard worlds, I mean." "At the academy? 12. 12 out of 3,000 cadets?" 12 out of 3,000 cadets, Sarah confirmed. Zephyr stared at her with new understanding. "You're not here to be officers, or diplomats, or scientists." "No," Sarah said. "We're here to be weapons." The words hung in the air between them. Outside, another ship was arriving. Sarah wondered if it carried more soft humans who would spend their academy years learning to build and explore and create, or if it carried another hard human who would spend their time learning to fight and survive and kill. Both types were important. Both types were needed. But only one type could catch scanner bolts with their bare hands. The testing continued for 3 more days. Every morning, cadets gathered in different chambers to face new challenges. Every evening, Sarah's name was at the top of the scores. On the second day, they tested physical strength. The other cadets used powered exoskeletons that doubled or tripled their natural ability. Sarah lifted the same weights with her bare hands. When Cadet Rexlan, a 4-armed Corfan, needed mechanical assistance to deadlift 3,000 pounds, Sarah walked up to the bar and lifted it easily. The watching instructors marked their tablets with troubled expressions. On the third day, they tested running speed and endurance. Cadet Yuri, whose people evolved from hunting cats, ran the course in record time with cybernetic leg enhancements. Sarah ran the same course in the same time without any enhancements at all. More troubled expressions, more whispered conversations between instructors. By the fourth day, the other cadets were no longer just curious about Sarah. They were afraid. She first noticed it in the dining hall. When she sat down with her food, the conversations at nearby tables stopped. Cadets found excuses to sit elsewhere. Soon she was eating alone while 300 other cadets kept their distance. The accusations started small. During weapons training, Cadet Mordine suggested that Sarah must be using illegal neural enhancers. During tactical exercises, Cadet Zilnara claimed that Sarah's reaction speed proved she had hidden cybernetic implants. Sarah submitted to every scan they requested. Every test came back negative. She was completely unenhanced. Her body was exactly what it appeared to be. Human flesh, and bone, and muscle. This only made things worse. If she's not enhanced, then she's not really human. Cadet Jexfo whispered loudly during combat theory class. Maybe she's some kind of experimental hybrid. Maybe Earth is doing illegal genetic experiments, another cadet suggested. Maybe they're trying to create super soldiers. Sarah tried to ignore the whispers, but they followed her everywhere. In the halls, in the training rooms, in her dormitory, other cadets watched her like she was a dangerous animal that might attack at any moment. The tension finally broke during hand-to-hand combat training. Instructor Velkan paired cadets together for sparring matches. Most fights lasted 2 or 3 minutes before one cadet clearly won. When Sarah's turn came, her opponent was Cadet Vextar. The Zenthari had been angry since the scanner bolt test. His pride was hurt, and his people did not handle wounded pride well. He stepped into the training circle with his jaw clenched and his hands already balled into fists. "Now I will show everyone what humans are really worth," he said loud enough for the whole class to hear. Sarah just nodded. She had no interest in fighting Vextar, but the instructors required all cadets to participate in combat training. The match began. Vextar moved fast. His people were natural warriors with excellent reflexes and powerful muscles. He threw a combination of punches that would have knocked most opponents unconscious. Sarah slipped away from every punch without seeming to try very hard. Her movements looked almost lazy compared to Vextar's aggressive attacks. Vextar grew more frustrated. He increased his speed and power, throwing everything he had at the small human woman who kept dancing just out of reach. Sarah could have ended the fight in the first 10 seconds. Her training on Terra Prime had taught her a dozen ways to break Vextar's bones or stop his breathing. But she held back. She did not want to seriously hurt him. To the watching cadets, her restraint looked like mockery. "Fight back!" Vextar shouted. "Stop playing games!" But Sarah continued to dodge and slip away. She was trying to tire him out, to let him exhaust himself safely. She thought this would be the kindest way to end the match. She was wrong. Her refusal to fight seriously made Vextar even angrier. It made the other cadets more suspicious. They saw her holding back her full strength, and it scared them more than any display of violence would have. After 3 minutes of missing every attack, Vextar stopped fighting and stepped back. "This is not real combat," he announced to the class. "She is mocking me. She is mocking all of us." "I'm not mocking anyone," Sarah said. "I'm just trying not to hurt you." The words hit the classroom like a slap. Several cadets made angry sounds. Instructor Velkan's 3 eyes narrowed as he studied both fighters. "You think you could hurt me?" Vextar demanded. "You think you are stronger than a Zenthari warrior?" Sarah looked around the classroom. Every face was staring at her. Some showed anger, others showed fear. All of them wanted to know the answer to Vextar's question. "Yes," she said simply. The classroom exploded into angry voices. Cadets from a dozen different species shouted in their own languages. Some demanded that Sarah prove her claim. Others insisted that she was lying. A few suggested that the match should be fought with real weapons instead of practice ones. Instructor Velkan raised his hand for silence. "The match will continue," he announced. "Full contact is now authorized." Sarah's heart sank. She had hoped to avoid this. Vextar smiled with all his sharp teeth. "Now we see the truth." He attacked again, but this time Sarah knew she could not hold back. If she continued to just dodge, the instructor might order weapons brought into the fight. If that happened, someone would definitely get seriously hurt. When Vextar threw his next punch, Sarah caught his wrist. She twisted just enough to lock his elbow joint, then applied pressure. Vextar's eyes went wide. Sarah was holding his arm in a position where she could break it easily. All she had to do was push a little harder. "Do you yield?" she asked quietly. For a moment, there was no sound in the classroom, except Vextar's rapid breathing. "I yield," he said. Sarah released him immediately and stepped back. Vextar rubbed his wrist and stared at her with a mixture of anger and confusion. "How?" he asked. "Terra Prime," Sarah said. The two words explained everything and nothing. The other cadets did not understand what Terra Prime was, or what it did to the humans who lived there. They only knew that this small human woman had just defeated one of the strongest cadets in their class without even breathing hard. As Sarah left the classroom, she could hear the conversations starting again behind her. The whispers were louder now. The fear was stronger. She was starting to understand why there were only 12 hard-world humans at the academy. Any more would have caused panic among the other cadets. But she was also starting to wonder what the academy was really preparing them for. What kind of enemy required warriors who could catch scanner bolts and defeat Zenthari fighters without weapons or enhancements? What was coming that would need humans like her? 2 weeks after the combat incident, Sarah received an unusual message. She was ordered to report to Admiral Cathresh's office immediately. No explanation was given. Admiral Cathresh was a legend in the Void Guard. He was old even by the standards of his long-lived species. His gray skin was marked with the scars of 100 battles, and his forearms had been rebuilt with military-grade cybernetics after being destroyed in combat. He had served in the Void Guard for over 2 centuries. Sarah had never met him personally, but every cadet knew his reputation. He was the hero of the Nexus defense. The warrior who had held off an entire invasion fleet with just 3 ships. He was also the one who had recommended that Terra Prime be established in the first place. His office was simple and stark. The walls were covered with star charts, showing the Outer Rim territories where the Void Guard maintained their watch. His desk held only a few items: a combat knife, a picture of his home world, and a small device that Sarah did not recognize. Admiral Cathresh looked at her with eyes that had seen more death and destruction than most beings could imagine. "Cadet Chen," he said. His voice was rough, like grinding stone. "Sit down." Sarah took the chair across from his desk. She kept her back straight, and her hands folded in her lap, the way her father had taught her. "Do you know why you are really here?" the Admiral asked. "To become a Void Guard officer." "Sir." Admiral Cathresh made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. "That is what we tell everyone. That is what we told you. But it is not the truth." He picked up the small device from his desk and activated it. The air above the desk shimmered, and a holographic display appeared. It showed a star map of the Outer Rim, but something was wrong with it. Large sections were marked in red. 3 months ago, we lost contact with Outpost Meridian, the Admiral said. 2 months ago, Scout Fleet 7 went silent while investigating. Last month, we sent the heavy cruiser Valor with a full escort. They found the remains of Scout Fleet 7, but they also found something else. Crew, the hologram changed, showing the twisted wreckage of spaceships. But these were not normal battle damage. The metal was bent and folded in impossible ways, like someone had crumpled paper instead of starships. The Valor sent 1 transmission before they were destroyed, Admiral Cathresh continued. They said the enemy was using weapons that attacked the mind as much as the body. Reality-bending technology that made their crews unable to function. Sarah studied the images. The ship wreckage looked like modern art. All flowing curves and impossible angles. It hurt her eyes to look at it for too long. "What kind of enemy can do this, sir?" "We call them the Deep Dark," Admiral Cathresh said. "They come from beyond the Galactic Rim, from spaces where physics work differently. They have been gone for 10,000 years. But now, they are returning." He changed the hologram again. This time it showed creatures that made Sarah's stomach turn. They had too many arms and legs, all bent in directions that should not be possible. Their faces were collections of eyes and mouths arranged in patterns that made no sense. The first time they attacked, they nearly destroyed galactic civilization, Admiral Cuthresh explained. They were stopped eventually, but the cost was enormous. Entire species went extinct. Whole star systems were abandoned. How were they stopped, sir? Admiral Thresh smiled, and this time there was grim satisfaction in it. By humans. Specifically, by humans from Earth. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. That was 10,000 years ago, sir. Humans had not even discovered fire yet. Exactly, the Admiral said. The deep dark have been gone for 10,000 years, waiting for the galaxy to forget how to fight them. When they return, they expect to face the same soft species they defeated before. He leaned forward across the desk. They are not expecting to face humans who evolved on a world that taught them to think fast, move faster, and never give up no matter how impossible the situation becomes. The hologram changed one more time. Now it showed a simulation chamber, the kind used for advanced training exercises. You are not here to become a Void Guard officer, Admiral Cuthresh said. You are here to see if you can survive what others cannot. You are here to be tested against the deep dark themselves. Sarah's mouth went dry. You want me to fight them? I want you to try to survive them, the Admiral corrected. The simulation chamber has been programmed with everything we learned from the Valor's data. It will attack your mind with impossible geometries, time paradoxes, and spatial distortions that break most beings' ability to think clearly. He stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the Academy's training grounds. 57 cadets have attempted this simulation. None have lasted more than 4 minutes before suffering complete mental breakdown. What about the other Terra Prime humans, sir? They will be tested later. If you survive, you are the first. Admiral Cuthresh turned back to face her. The deep dark are coming whether we are ready or not. Our intelligence suggests they will arrive within 6 months. The Confederation needs to know if Earthborn humans can do what our ancestors did 10,000 years ago. Sarah stood up. Her legs felt unsteady, but her voice was calm. When do I start, sir? Now, Admiral Cuthresh said. The simulation chamber is ready. They walked through the Academy's halls in silence. Other cadets stepped aside when they saw Admiral Cuthresh, but their eyes followed Sarah with new curiosity. Word traveled fast in a place like this. By evening, everyone would know that the human from Terra Prime had been called to meet with the most famous admiral in the Void Guard. The simulation chamber was in a restricted section that Sarah had never seen before. It was much larger than the testing chambers she was used to. The walls were covered with devices she did not recognize, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. Remember, Admiral Thresh said as technicians prepared the simulation, this is not about winning. This is about surviving. The deep dark do not fight like normal enemies. They attack reality itself. Sarah nodded and walked into the center of the chamber. The technicians activated their equipment, and the world around her began to change. The walls started to bend inward, but somehow they also stretched outward at the same time. The floor became the ceiling, but she was still standing upright. Colors appeared that had no names, and sounds came from directions that did not exist. Sarah's first instinct was to close her eyes, but that made things worse. With her eyes closed, she could see things that should not be there, geometric shapes that folded through dimensions she could not understand. The attack on her mind began in earnest. Voices whispered impossible equations in her ears. Time moved backward and forward simultaneously. She was standing in the chamber, but she was also floating in deep space. But she was also back on Terra Prime as a child. Most beings would have collapsed by now. The confusion and sensory overload would have shut down their higher brain functions, leaving them helpless against whatever physical attacks came next. But Sarah had grown up on Terra Prime. She had learned to think clearly, while dodging acid rain and hunting creatures that could kill her in a dozen different ways. She had trained her mind to focus on what mattered and ignore everything else. She found the pattern in the chaos. The impossible geometries were not random. They followed rules. just rules that normal physics did not allow. The time distortions had a rhythm, even if it was a rhythm that hurt to follow. The reality breaks were designed to confuse. But confusion was just another kind of obstacle. Sarah had been dealing with obstacles her entire life. She survived for 12 minutes before Admiral Cathresh ordered the simulation ended. When the technicians shut down their equipment and the chamber returned to normal, she was still standing in the center, alert and ready to continue. The Admiral stared at her with something like awe in his ancient eyes. "Cadet Chen," he said slowly, "I think we may have found our answer." 3 days later, Admiral Cathresh called Sarah to his office again. This time, she was not alone. The other 11 Terra Prime humans were there too, along with representatives from the Confederation Council and several high-ranking military officers she did not recognize. Admiral Cathresh did not waste time with pleasantries. "All 12 Terra Prime cadets have now completed the Deep Dark simulation," he announced. "All 12 have survived longer than any other being tested. The shortest time was 8 minutes. The longest was Cadet Chen, at 12 minutes. One of the council representatives, a tall being with silver skin and no visible mouth, spoke through a translation device. "These results are unprecedented. How is this possible?" "Because we lied to you," Admiral Cathresh said bluntly. "All of you. For 300 years." The room fell silent. Sarah felt the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Admiral Cathresh activated his desk hologram. It showed Earth, but not the way Sarah had ever seen it. This Earth was covered with massive cities, defense platforms, and what looked like military training facilities. "Earth was never quarantined to protect the galaxy from humans," he continued. "Earth was quarantined to protect humans from the galaxy." The silver-skinned council member made a sound like static. "Explain." 10,000 years ago, when the Deep Dark first attacked, it was humans who saved the galaxy," Admiral Cathresh said. "Not the humans you know from the Garden Worlds. Wild humans. Humans who had evolved on a world that taught them to fight impossible odds and never surrender." The hologram changed to show historical records, ancient battles between human warriors and the twisted creatures Sarah had seen in the earlier simulation. After the Deep Dark were driven back, the galaxy made a choice. Admiral Cathresh continued. "They decided that humans were too dangerous to exist in their natural state. Earth was declared a restricted world. Most humans were relocated to safe, comfortable planets, where they would become soft and manageable." Sarah felt her world shift around her. Everything she had been told about human history was a lie. "But some of us knew the Deep Dark would return eventually," Admiral Cathresh said. "So we created Terra Prime. We made it even harder than Earth had been. We bred humans for 300 years, selecting for the qualities that would be needed when the enemy came back." One of the Terra Prime cadets, a young man named Marcus, spoke up. "You used us. You used our families. You turned us into weapons without telling us." "Yes," Admiral Cathresh said without apology. "Because the alternative was the extinction of all intelligent life in the galaxy." He changed the hologram again. This time it showed star charts, with massive red areas marked as Deep Dark Territory. The infected regions were much larger than they had been in the previous briefing. "Our latest intelligence shows that the Deep Dark have conquered most of the Outer Rim," he said. "They are moving toward core systems faster than we anticipated. They will reach Confederation space within 2 months." Sarah studied the star charts. The enemy was coming whether they were ready or not. The only question was whether the galaxy would fight back or simply surrender to something it could not understand. "What do you want us to do?" she asked. Admiral Cathresh smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had seen from him. "I want you to do what your ancestors did. I want you to save the galaxy." The silver-skinned council member made more static sounds. "These are children. Cadets. They have no command experience. Command experience is not what we need," Admiral Cathresh replied. "We need minds that can function when reality breaks down. We need reflexes that can catch scanner bolts. We need warriors who were born and raised to fight impossible enemies." He turned to Sarah. "Cadet Chen, You are hereby promoted to commander and given command of the first Earthborn military unit in 3 centuries. You will take your 11 companions and a ship equipped with everything we know about fighting the deep dark. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like a heavy coat. What about the rest of the fleet, sir? The rest of the fleet will do what they can, Admiral Cathresh said. But they are not built for this kind of war. When the deep dark attack with weapons that bend minds and break reality, most of our forces will be helpless. One of the other military officers stepped forward. Admiral, surely you cannot be serious about sending 12 cadets against an enemy that has destroyed entire fleets. Admiral Cathresh turned to face the officer. Would you prefer to send 12,000 normal soldiers to die uselessly? Or 12 Terra Prime humans who might actually survive long enough to fight back? The officer had no answer to that. Sarah looked at her 11 companions. They were all young, all from Terra Prime, all shaped by the same harsh world that had made her what she was. None of them looked afraid. They looked ready. We'll need a ship, she said. The Earthbreaker is being prepared for you, Admiral Cathresh replied. It is equipped with the most advanced weapons and defenses we have. More importantly, it is designed to function even when local reality becomes unstable. What about crew? You are the crew. Terra Prime humans only. We learned from the Valor's fate that mixed crews do not work against the deep dark. Normal beings cannot function in their presence. Sarah nodded. It made sense. Her people had been bred for this moment. Trained for this enemy. Adding anyone else would only create weaknesses for the deep dark to exploit. When do we leave? She asked. Within the hour, Admiral Cathresh said. The deep dark are moving faster than expected. Every day we delay is another system that falls. As the meeting ended and the officials filed out, Admiral Cathresh took Sarah aside. There is one more thing you should know, he said quietly. Earth is not just a training world. It is a fortress. If you fail, if the deep dark cannot be stopped, Earth will be the last line of defense. How many people live there now, sir? 2 billion, he replied. All of them descendants of the hardest humans who ever lived. All of them prepared to fight a war that the rest of the galaxy cannot even imagine. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. 2 billion humans, all like her, all waiting for an enemy that bent reality itself. It was either the galaxy's salvation or its last desperate act before extinction. Do you think we can win, sir? Admiral Cathresh was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Your ancestors drove back the deep dark when they had stone spears and animal skins. You have starships and energy weapons. If anyone can win, it will be humans. 2 hours later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Earthbreaker as it prepared to leave Academy Station. Through the viewing screen, she could see the lights of the station growing smaller as they moved away. Behind her, her 11 companions checked weapons and equipment. They worked in silence, but she could feel their determination. They were scared, but they were ready. They had been bred for this moment across 3 centuries of careful planning. Commander, her pilot said. Course laid in for the outer rim. We should reach deep, dark territory in 6 days. Take us out, Sarah ordered. As the Earthbreaker jumped to faster-than-light speed, Sarah thought about the words she had spoken to Cadet Vextar in the testing chamber. Earthborn. Try again. Now she was carrying that message to an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. An enemy that thought it understood what humans were capable of. The Deep Dark were about to learn that humans had changed since their last visit. They were about to discover what 300 years of careful breeding and brutal training could produce. They were about to meet the children of Terra Prime. Sarah smiled as the stars streaked past the viewing screen. Her ancestors had saved the galaxy once with nothing but courage and determination. She and her people would do it again, no matter what impossible horrors waited in the darkness between the stars. The Deep Dark wanted to break reality itself? Let them try. Earthborn humans had been breaking impossible things their entire lives. It was time to show the galaxy what they were really made of.